Growing up, I knew my parents were there for me. We celebrated family events. They were there for me when I was sick or needed help. As me and my sister grew up, we knew we could count on our parents. We were so proud to be their children. Today, we are there for our parents, to share in the celebration of their grandchildren or to be there when they are ill or need assistance. They can count on us. And now our parents look to us to take care of them. Hello, and welcome to Always There. My name is Michael Wilsker, and I'll be your host. Our program deals with issues facing seniors and their families, and we discuss those issues with professionals who help deal with families in those situations. Today my guest is Chris Brooks. Chris runs a assisted living community in Hopedale, which is the name of Draper House.
No, Atria Draper Place.
Oh, Atria Draper Place. I'm
Yes.
sorry. Thank you for correcting me. Chris, why don't you give the viewers a little bit of your background and what you actually do for Draper?
Okay, sure. This actually just celebrated my 12th anniversary in the industry. I started in 2001 in Concord, Mass. as a business director in assisted living, having no idea what assisted living was all about or what I was getting into. That wasn't my original background. But once I started, I had found my niche. I loved working with seniors. I still do. I can't even imagine doing anything else. And I've been with Atria Senior Living now for 8 years, and at Atria Draper Place, I'm in my 5th year with them right now. And I'm the executive director. I'm supported by a team of professionals, each one an expert in their field as far as our programming goes, our culinary services, nursing services, and we also have Alzheimer's and related dementias as well.
Now, is that pretty much the norm for most assisted livings?
It is. Absolutely it is.
And,
yes.
And what is exactly assisted living?
Assisted living is for seniors who might need a little bit extra help. They can still remain independent in their own apartment, but they might need extended services for care, little help with grooming, reminders for medications. They really just aren't making it on their own, in their own apartment or in their own home, and just need supportive services so that they can stay independent and be not so burdensome for the family. So when the families do visit, it is a pleasure and enjoying, not, Mom, you didn't take your meds, there's no argument. We're there to take care of that piece for the family.
So it's like a resort for those who need a little care.
Need a little bit of care. Yes, absolutely.
And just tell me about, I know that there are assisted livings that stand on their own. They're just there and they're the only community that is there, but they're also what they call continuums.
CCRC, yes, they start as independent, then have an assisted community, and then a nursing home as well. And that is continuing care. And normally with the continuing care, the resident has to move from one building to another for that service. What I provide is independent assisted living. They're all in one community. If you start independent and need assistance later on, you don't even have to change your apartment. We just add services.
So if you were in a continuum, if you go, or even applies to like Draper, where somebody needs additional care, they have an accident, they have an illness, they have to go back into the hospital.
Yep.
Then they will go into the rehab.
Depending on what type of accident or illness they have. But that's their home. They're renting an apartment from us, and they can come home. We may have to add services, increase their care, or families oftentimes will bring in private duty services just as an ancillary to help out until they get their strength back, because they don't want to move them. That does become their home. We become their extended family, and the thought of leaving is usually very difficult. Yeah. So we try to work with the families, work together to try and keep them in the same environment with people who know them for as long as possible.
Now, are there different levels of care? I mean, is there a minimum care as opposed to a maximum that you can provide?
Absolutely. And that's what makes us different from a nursing home, which is skilled nursing care. In the assisted living, we try to keep it to an assist of one person. No two-person assists. We do not feed our residents. They do need to be able to go to the dining room and feed themselves. It is a higher functioning level of care in the assisted living compared to that of the skilled nursing care.
Now, are there other assisted living communities that do provide more care?
It's interesting, the state regulations are very vague in Massachusetts and gray, so it's based on your interpretation of the regulations. There are assisted livings that do give more care, such as Hoyer lifts, two-person transfers, ground
what
diets.
Exactly, so people know?
A Hoyer lift is a mechanism, which is actually a machine that helps assist to lift a resident out of their bed and into a chair, or, where it's actually a machine and the humans aren't doing the work. But we don't have that. And you do see those in nursing homes. That's common. But that's not common in most assisted livings. But there are some that do use them.
And so a person who has a walker or a wheelchair.
Not a problem.
Not a problem.
Not at all. Not at all.
And they get extra care as a result of that for the hour?
It depends. We have residents who are completely independent with no nursing services that use walkers, wheelchairs, or canes. That's just strictly to help them ambulate and walk through the community and remain safe, more for balance. But then we do have those residents who, whether it be due to memory loss or a physical problem, need nursing help. And that might be med reminders to take their medications, make sure they're taking them on time, make sure that they're taking them every day. Then there are those that might need a little bit of help in the morning and in the evening, getting dressed, grooming, getting ready for bed. Light housekeeping, we do that as well. People who have physical issues and can no longer make their own bed, clean up. Our aides will help with all of that. So that way they can still maintain their independence as best as possible. Still go out into the dining room, eat with their friends, go on trips, and do all of those things. And their neighbor may have no idea they're getting help inside their apartment, which is nice. It's private.
Right. Now, what sizes do they run? Do they have studios, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom?
Yes, every community is a little bit different. My particular community is very different because it is a refurb of the administrative offices for the Draper Mill. So it wasn't built specific for assisted living. And we have very high ceilings and large windows. But most assisted livings, you will find studios, 1 bedrooms, and some 2-bedroom apartments. And basically, a resident will come in and choose an apartment, just like they do in an apartment building, based on what their needs are or what they like. Some people want a lot of space and want to bring as many belongings from their home as possible, and those people tend to get the 1 bedrooms, the larger apartments. And then you have some that are looking to downsize. They don't plan on spending a lot of time in their apartment because they're coming to make friends and be social, and they don't want to sit in their apartment all day. They want to be active, and they'll choose a smaller apartment.
Now, do you try to promote that with residents if they don't want to go out of their apartments? Do they?
Absolutely. We have a whole team. We call them Engage Life Directors, to engage life at all times and basically to promote activity and socialization. And I think that's one of the greatest things about assisted living in general. So many times you hear a parent say, but this is my home, I don't want to leave my home. But all they're doing is sitting in that house day after day, looking at 4 walls or watching TV, not doing anything. When you get into the assisted living, you start getting out, socializing with people, going on trips. You might learn something new. We have painting classes, we have art classes. We have people in their 80s that have never done anything like that before and just presented at an art show. So it's amazing. And what you'll hear is, gee, I didn't know what I was missing. Because you don't know what you're missing.
Now, the most assisted living communities have orientation programs, so when the senior comes in,
I would imagine most of them do have some sort of program. What we have is an ambassador program where other residents, they request to be part of this program so that they can sort of buddy up with a new resident. Whenever anybody comes in, it's kind of like going to a new school for the first time. You're the new kid and you don't know
Right.
where people sit in the cafeteria, in the dining room, and where should I go, what time. So we try to find somebody who might have the same need, enjoy the same social programming, have something in common, knock on their door, invite them to dinner with them, invite them to have meals, remind them about the programs that are going on, so that and introduce them to the other people in the community.
And the apartment itself, again, it's a rental. It's not like a condo where they own
Correct.
the apartment. And what kind of, do they have a kitchen, do they have?
They have a kitchenette, which is it's a galley kitchen. They have a sink, a stovetop, microwave, and a refrigerator. There is no oven, and then there's plenty of cabinets up and down. We do have, I think in every community, there are handicap accessible apartments as well for those folks that are in the wheelchair and they can wheel up to their sink and not have cabinets underneath, and same in the bathroom.
And what, can a single person go in there and match up with another single person and live in a two-bedroom together? Or
It has, yes,
happens in
it
assisted
has
living?
happened, and in our case, our 2 bedrooms right now, because we didn't have a need in this particular community for a lot of 2-bedroom apartments, what we did is we turned our 2-bedroom into a shared, so that each resident has their own bedroom, they have their own bathroom, but they share a common living room and kitchen. So it's a lower cost alternative for somebody to come in. Many people will apply for what is called the Group Adult Foster Care Program, which is a mass health program through the state, and we will use those apartments for that as well. Most assisted living.
Do you set aside, does an assisted living community set those aside?
Most do. In ours, we have a certain percentage of low-income apartments. We have 20%. And, you know, we do accept the Group Adult Foster Care Program into our community. Space is limited, but it's always full because there are people who need it and qualify. Assisted living is basically private pay, but there are programs in place to help with that payment. There's Veterans Aid and Attendance.
Just going to bring that up.
Yeah,
Thank you.
which
Why don't you explain,
many people
what
aren't
that
even
is?
aware of
Right.
that. If you're a veteran who served during wartime, you may be eligible for Veterans Aid and Attendance. And we have seminars throughout the year to educate folks on that. And it's amazing how many people didn't know that they qualified for that. And that can help pay for up to $1,700 a month
Right.
of your rent, which is fantastic. And then, of course, there is the Mass Health Program, which is the Group Adult Foster Care Program through the state of Massachusetts, for those folks who are on an extremely, extremely low income that can't afford
Right.
assisted living.
But just getting back to the aid and attendance, you might want to also say that it's also there for not only the veteran, but his
The
wife,
spouse.
the spouse, and if the veteran passes away, it does pass on to the spouse.
It does pass on
also.
to the spouse, so yes. And if the veteran had already passed away and just the spouse comes into the assisted living, that spouse may be eligible as well.
And do you find that a lot of people take advantage of that in assisted living?
Absolutely.
And
Once they learn about it, yes. And we generally put them in touch with somebody from Veterans Aid and Attendance to make sure to help them with the application process, because it is a lengthy process. The other piece too that folks often don't realize, long-term care insurance will also pay for assisted living in some cases. It's not just for nursing homes. And we have several residents that took out long-term care policies that are paying for their stay with us.
And as a result of that, you find you get a lot more people who are qualified to come in, who have the ability to come in as a result of those programs.
It absolutely helps.
Right.
Absolutely.
And how involved are the families in making the decision to live in an assisted living? Is it basically, is it more that the family makes the decision or tries to make the decision
I would
with mom
say
or dad?
95% of the time it's the family.
It's the family.
And usually the family needs assistance talking mom or dad into it, even to coming for a visit. Because for whatever reason, people still have this stigma that assisted living is the same as a nursing home. And they're going to put me in a nursing home and they're never going to come visit.
Right.
And it's very different. You know, it is an apartment building. There is plenty to do. You are not isolated. You can have your car. You
Oh, you can?
Absolutely. You can still have your car. You can still go out and do just like you did at home or in your condo or in your apartment. It's just that we have added services if you need them. You know, there's 24-hour emergency response system. There's always 24-hour staff on duty at all times, so that if you do have a problem, there's somebody there to help you. And it's more peace of mind.
I know some assisted living communities have a memory loss floor.
Yes, as do we.
Okay. You want to talk more about that?
It's a secure unit for safety, and it is also staffed 24/7. We do hourly checks on the residents with dementia. And it's not just Alzheimer's care, it is other dementias as well. The staffing ratios are usually much higher in a secure unit for safety reasons, but again, it boils down to activity and keeping people busy so that you don't see behaviors and you don't see, I know people who have experienced it and lived with somebody with dementia, there can be a lot of behaviors involved, a lot of wandering. Obviously, there's constant repetition. And our staff is trained to deal with behaviors and to redirect. Also, people with dementia tend to forget as far as nourishment goes, and you see a lot of weight loss. And you know, they're very well taken care of. Their diet is it's very nutritious. Like I said, we have culinary services that cater to those needs and make sure that they're getting healthy snacks in between. They are having 3 square meals a day and plenty of hydration also.
And my understanding is they don't have a stove in their rooms. Is that correct?
No, they're disconnected.
They're disconnected?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the state says that they have to have everything the same as people in a traditional unit.
Oh,
We
okay.
aren't to discriminate against them.
That's interesting.
But we do disconnect. With the family's approval, we disconnect.
Now, how is that that part of the community integrate with the rest of the community?
I can only speak to ours, but they are downstairs for all of the social events, cocktail hours, birthday parties, entertainment. And we also bring entertainment upstairs for those folks who get nervous. Sometimes someone with dementia, too much stimulation is difficult, and they get very nervous and anxious and don't want to be part of a crowd. So we try to cater to both needs. But they are integrated. When we have a barbecue on Friday afternoons, our residents from our Alzheimer's unit are right down there with everybody else.
So when you take a trip, they were all together?
We
or
have
they take
separate
their own
trips.
separate trips?
We have separate trips for traditional and for the Alzheimer's group. Because the Alzheimer's group, we have to plan things at their level. And there are different levels also of the disease. We have some folks that are higher functioning than others, so you have to plan accordingly. And our traditional folks, we don't have to worry about them wandering in that one-to-one if you're out on a trip. You know, the assisted living, they go on boat trips, they go to the casinos, they have a grand time.
Really?
And I wouldn't take a group of memory-impaired people to a casino. That wouldn't be my first choice. So their trips are a little bit different.
Right.
They go to but they do go, you know, they've gone to the Museum of Fine Arts. They do go. They just go, and we also need more staff when they go as well.
Now, talking about staff, how often or at all do residents bring in their own caregivers? Is
Only when they have a medical issue. Usually if they've come home from the hospital or rehab and they require a little more service or care than we can give them ourselves, then they will bring in a private duty staff person to help out until they get their strength back and they're back to their baseline.
Now, so is there any situations where you would like to provide the service, but you can't because it doesn't fall into what you can handle?
Towards the end of life, oftentimes, or the end of the disease, when people are no longer able to participate in their care, or that they can no longer follow commands, you cannot get them to stand on their own or to follow any commands. That is difficult when you have to sit down and have that conversation with the family and let them know that they might need more care than we're able to provide, and it's time to start looking at a nursing home.
So do they have to leave if they don't
Unless
if they're
they're
at that level
willing-
of, that they need that level of care?
Only if they're not willing to bring in extra services to help out. If they were willing to bring in a private duty person to be one-on-one with that person, then they could stay, because our staff wouldn't be involved in the care. The other thing would be incontinence issues. If somebody could not control their incontinence at all, it certainly isn't fair to other people in the community. You can't have somebody incontinent at all times out in our common areas, the living room or the dining room.
So if that is to take place, then the only alternative would be to go back home or go into a long-term care
Private
facility?
duty for
Okay,
private duty
within your facility,
within
your
our community,
Okay.
or a nursing home.
And do you, how do assisted livings bring those agency in? Does
The
the family
family
have
does.
it? The family decides
The
on their
family
own?
decides. We don't contract with anybody. We have a number of private agencies in the community at any one time. It's up to the family. So if the family has used a particular agency in the past and they're comfortable, then they bring that agency in. We don't tell them who they should use. We have outside agencies come in for physical therapy, occupational therapy, mental health. They can really get all their services right there in one place.
If a private service comes in, how do they work with your staff?
Basically, they're in contact with the resident service director and the care staff on a regular basis, talk about what their intention is, why they're there, what services they're going to provide for the resident, and then what the progress is of the resident.
And do you monitor that? Does the staff, do the
The
nursing
resident
staff?
service director and the wellness nurse do. Yeah, they have regular meetings whenever there's private duty in the building. So we always know who's with our residents, who's taking care of them, and why, and what the progress is.
Has there ever been an instance there where you found or in any of these communities, if they monitor the caregiver, that they're not satisfied with that caregiver and they tell the family about that? Or you make the decision?
We
to
don't
let
make
them
the
in?
decision. Everything is up to the family. Everything is the family is contracted with the provider. We are not, and we're not their employer. So everything is really based on the family.
So if you come across a caregiving agency that in the past has not performed to the standards that you believe they should, do you then go back to the family and say, look, we've had this agency in here before, I
No.
don't think it's a good idea, maybe you should use this one?
What we try to do to get around that is to say, here are our top 3. And if they're not at the top of the list, but we don't badmouth anybody.
Okay.
And it may have been just one caregiver. It may not be the agency.
It may not be the agency.
It may be a really reputable agency that does a wonderful job, and it may be that one caregiver. So I would never do that.
Now, getting back to the meals that they get at the assisted living, what is the range of food and what are the hours that they can eat and things of that sort?
Every community is a little bit different, and the ranges also are different. Some provide 2 meals a day, some 3. We do 3. We open our dining room at 7:30 in the morning, and it's open till 7 o'clock at night. Some communities have assigned meal times. Some have all-day dining, and it depends on the community. We always in the past had assigned meals and assigned times, and on July 1st we will be moving to anytime dining so that folks can come into our dining room and get something at any time of the day. And there's always 2 specials at noontime. We have our big meal at noontime and a lighter supper. 2 entrees. Usually there's a fish or a chicken and a beef, and then your starch and your vegetables, soup and salad, roll a big meal. And then if you're not that hungry or you just don't like what's on the menu that day, there's always over 30 other items you can choose from, made to order at all times.
And I can say from my own experience, because I think people just envision going to an assisted living pretty much like a nursing home, say, oh, the food is going to be, you know, it's not going to be first class.
No.
In fact, it's not even going to be close to that. Though my experience is that the food that they serve at assisted livings are really well prepared, very top notch.
Restaurant quality food.
Yes, absolutely.
And presentation. Absolutely. As if you're going to a restaurant. No assigned seating. You sit with where you'd like with your friends. And again, we have waiters and waitresses that come around and take your order just like a restaurant. If you're not pleased with something, you send it back and you get something else.
Well, it almost sounds like it's a cruise. It's a cruise ship.
It is.
That doesn't go anywhere.
It doesn't leave.
But doesn't leave, but you get to leave, go see other things, and enjoy company of others. And then you also try to encourage those who come in there to integrate themselves and with all the rest of the community.
Yeah.
And that's what I think. I mean, that's the misconception that people have. Again, like you said before, that people think that it's a nursing home and that home environment.
And it's not.
And the difference between assisted living and independent living is
the assistance in the care. We have both, independent and assisted. And
most
somebody who is independent
do have that. Is
most
that correct?
do.
Yeah.
There are some though that just strictly assisted.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are independent, that means that you require no services. However, you still participate in all the programs, all the trips. You get all your meals. You get all your housekeeping. You get everything that assisted resident gets, except for care or med management, help with your medications.
That's interesting.
So you take advantage of everything else the community has to offer.
That's interesting.
Yep.
That's good to know. That's good to know.
Yeah.
You know, because I think my mother, at some point, is going to have to go into an assisted living. She lives down in Florida. I live up here. My sister lives in New York.
Yeah.
And my sister and I are battling over where my mother's going to go.
Where will she go?
Where will she go? I mean, I have much more of a knowledge of the assisted living up here, but you know, being my mother and my sister, they want to be closer together than.
Yeah.
So I'm really more in control of what's going on than my sister, but that's okay.
Yeah.
As long as I get an input as to what assisted living she lives in.
I feel like I have such an upper hand. You know, people talk about, you know, when the time comes and when they get older, and I think, wow, I'm so lucky to have the knowledge I have because I've already told my kids.
Right.
You know, I know what I want. I don't want to sit at
that's
home
great.
alone and
That's
look at the
great.
four walls. I want fun.
Right. Well, I hope we got to educate
I hope
people
so.
about that with this issue, and I appreciate you coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So if anybody has any questions they'd like in more detail, they can always contact me at alwaysbestcare@westborotv.com. Thank you for joining us, and Chris, thank you again for being here, and I look forward to seeing you on our next program. Bye-bye.